Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. My name is Brooke. I am a founder, CEO, wellness junkie, person in transformation on a journey, and excited to be sharing it with you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie, and I am a lifestyle coach. I am a wellness advocate, community builder, and just living my best life out here in LA, and your biggest hype girl.
Absolutely. And we started this podcast because we were both on a journey of transformation, evolution, discovering a lot of things that we wanted to share with people, and also, not be on it alone. So we're doing it together and we're bringing you in, and every week we get to interview really amazing guests that have done really cool things, are examples of huge expansion for us and hopefully for you guys. And from time to time, we share some of the learnings we've had over the past decade and beyond, and what we're actively learning, to, just help us all along this little journey called life.
We all need a bit of inspiration in our life, and the closer we can get to it, the more we are influenced by it.
Yeah, so here we are, Expanders Club.
Expanders Club. We're doing something fun today, guys. It's just going to be Brooke and I on the app, and I am going to be interviewing Brooke. Brooke has, for the last 10 years, dedicated herself to her baby being her first baby, her business that she created. And so we're just going to get a bit of insight of her journey throughout starting the business, what it's actually been like behind the scenes. You might be familiar with Brooke from Goodmylk, and she has talked about the business along the way, not really as much in this podcast, but maybe in other podcast interviews and just in the general public. And it's interesting when you ask questions and you're given certain answers. But today, Brooke is going to get real with us. She's going to get honest. She's going to tell us the truth behind the life as a founder, as a CEO, and where the business is at now and where she's transitioning into.
Yes, I am excited, I guess. I don't know if that's quite
it's time to be truthful.
Yes, I don't know if that's quite the word, but having this conversation with you, someone who has also been such a huge part of my journey, a huge part of my business. For those of you who don't know, Maddie worked with me for 5 years in the business in many different roles and saw many things, many pivots, much trauma, a lot of joyful moments, a lot of really hard moments. So I am interested to see where this conversation goes, because a lot of the opportunities that I have to speak about Goodmylk or my journey as a founder are really bite-sized views of how it's been, what we've accomplished, and not a lot of talking about the hard. And really, to be honest, kind of curated pieces of the story that are meant for the public.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what this is going to be.
Let's get real. I like to go deep, and I'm going to take you there. I also, I know so much of the story. And so there's so much more to it that the public doesn't know. And this is the case for so many founders and CEOs. And it's like, maybe we can normalize some real honest conversations so people could actually understand what it's like to run and own a business.
Yeah. Let's go. I'm excited.
Okay. Well, I guess we should start from the beginning. And let's just go. I want to know, let's share with the audience, what was the first reason or drive behind wanting to start the business?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know what the business is today. Goodmylk Co. We're a plant-based milk company, and we make, the best quality. Now we have this really innovative format, better for you, better for the planet, plant-based milks, but it has evolved to there in a lot of phases. And really my journey started out making and selling cold pressed juice at the local farmers market. So very small. I would never say that I had this like big vision for the company. I just fell in love with cold pressed juice. I was having my own health journey, and just really discovering what real food could do, and understanding, the harm of processed foods. And cold pressed juice was something that healed me so much, and I fell in love with it and knew that if it was made right, one bottle could make a difference for someone and could give them, it wasn't going to heal you from like major health issues, but it could give you that little like jolt of like, oh shit, this feels good. And if I can do this every day, maybe I can add in some things. And I thought it could be like a really beautiful catalyst for someone on their health journey. And so I fell in love with it. We started, created the recipes myself. The best freaking juice. You guys, Maddie, I know you can confirm this. We've both traveled the world and had a lot of different cold pressed juices, but these recipes were just like so good.
They were so good. They hit right. And this was probably one of it got me into cold pressed juice. And you're right. Like it was a catalyst for me. I was working for the company and I was like, okay, I get to drink juice on a daily basis. And when you actually have access to cold pressed juice and, you're not necessarily paying full price every day, it's accessible and you become addicted to the feeling of how good it makes you feel. Yes. You actually like feel the juice running through your veins, energizing you, giving you life.
Yes. And I love to hear you say that. That was the goal. That's what I wanted people to feel. And so I started the only way I knew, which was at the local farmers market and selling to some local friends, or like in local friends shops. And it just kind of took off from there. And it was so much hustle. It was a different kind of hustle in the beginning, right? Like I was literally doing every job. I'm in the kitchen all day making the juice. I'm the one getting up and going out and doing deliveries at 5 and 6 a.m. around LA. I'm going to the local farmers market and buying boxes of produce and shoving them in my car. I'm setting up for the farmers markets and standing there all day, like
slugging around those coolers that was so heavy, pulling them from your car to the farmers market stand, propping up the tent. It was definitely labor intensive.
Yeah, it was a hustle. And guys, these were glass bottles too. This was 100% organic cold pressed juice in glass bottles with superfoods and medicinal herbs in it 11 years ago.
Yeah, it was legit.
Yeah, and that was a really cool experience and very different kind of hustle. I don't know that I have that kind of hustle in me now, but it was an experience of like you kind of just knew how to put one foot in front of the other, right? Like I knew that I could work hard. And that's what those days were. We're just really like working hard and trying to create opportunities. So sold at the farmers market, sold at some local shops. Then, as you know, ended up opening our own shop where we incorporated cryotherapy, which is so interesting and weird. And for those of you who don't know what cryotherapy is, we basically had this like chamber that was connected to liquid nitrogen and dropped down to, I don't know. Do you even remember the numbers? I don't even remember that stuff anymore.
It was like negative 150 or something.
Yeah, it was some crazy negative temperature. You get in, you're in there for 3 minutes, and you come out feeling amazing. Like it just, reduces inflammation instantly. That's the biggest thing it's doing. But has a lot of other great side effects. And so we were slinging juice in the front of the shop and running a cryo sauna, they're called, in the back of the shop. And that was the chapter that I met you, and you came in like literally a month or so after we opened the shop.
That's right. And I didn't know, I got introduced to you by Leah, shout out to Leah. And she was like, look, I've got a friend who's got a juice company and like almond milk company, and I think you should talk to her, because I just moved to LA looking for a job. And I'd come from various backgrounds of like marketing, sales, entertainment, like PR events, management, etc. And I met you. I was like, I don't really know what's going on here, but whatever this is, this seems cool and healthy and fun. And I was like, what can I do here? How can I get involved?
And it was fun. I mean, we had so much fun, but that was a weird time. I mean, Christ, the whole thing has been weird. It is such a roller coaster. And in hindsight, like, gosh, I think of the things that were hard then, you know, and in hindsight, it was like, man, those were actually some of the most fun times.
Isn't that crazy that actually the things you were dealing with then, how they compared to what you were dealing with further along with the business?
Yes.
So I guess, what would you say some of the biggest challenges were that you faced in business?
Oh gosh. I mean, I've been meaning to like sit down and like process all of this and grieve it, and maybe now's the time. I've been so hesitant to, because it's just been like, holy shit. It has been a lot. And so much of it I've kept to myself or to my close circle. I mean, obviously my husband knows all of it. You know all of it. A few of my friends do. But also, I don't even think I've like admitted to myself how traumatic and impactful some of it has been. So, you know, there's the general challenges of business, but gosh, early days when I opened that shop, it was my juice, but it was with a partner. And we called it was a whole different business, the cryo and the juice together. And that partner decided to leave like within months of us opening the shop, within like 6 months. And so, you know, that felt dramatic and traumatic then. And it was like, you know, I think we were both like pretty immature, and I was pretty immature. My life was the company, and I couldn't even process someone like walking away from something. Like that was like just such a value that I didn't have. But she had a kid. I think he was like 1 or 2. And like now as a parent, I get it. You quickly assess like what's the most important thing here. And I don't think she knew how much work it was going to take. And I think that in general, especially back then, my ability to work was really hard to keep up with. And I don't say that as necessarily a good thing, you know?
I can vouch for that. Working for Brooke, at times I was like, damn, this woman is a slave driver. She worked at all hours of the day, weekends. There was just no time that was not work time. And of course, it was your business. It was your baby. You were so dedicated to building it, to making it work. And I know because you've said this, but I understand that you felt that everyone you brought on, you're like, why aren't they as dedicated to this as I am?
Yeah. And in hindsight, that is actually probably one of the biggest regrets I have about my actions in business. I just couldn't, you know, there's a lot of ego actually involved in starting and running a business. And we can get into some of those layers in a little bit later. But I think that, gosh, certainly for a big chunk of me owning and running this business, my ego was kind of leading the way. And I also just didn't have the experience of like having a family, or, you know, I didn't care about, I had such a full social life, like starting at a young age. You know, I was a bartender in a city that stayed open till 4 a.m. Like I was kind of done. Like I didn't really care about a social life. I just didn't have any other priorities other than the business. I had Dennis. We'd already been dating for a few years and had a really solid relationship. Like I didn't have to put much time and attention into that. And I I hope and I think that most people had a good experience working for me. But yeah, I have regrets around the pressure that I put on people, the expectations I had, the humanity that I didn't fully put into it. Like it was almost like a different, and that's it's not my truest self, right? It was like a different version of me running my business, but then the business becomes you and like you become that.
Yeah, I remember, and I don't think that you didn't do anything wrong and there's no blame there because you did the best with like what you knew. And I I don't think you'd ever taken a vacation. When I started with you, being from Australia, I was like, okay, well, when I got to go home, I've got to go home. Like I need like a 2 week break. And for you, you were like, what? Like you're going to take 2 weeks off. And that was almost unfathomable. Like you couldn't believe the leave that I would ask for in a year. And it just was such a hard thing for you to let someone take that time away from business because you'd never truly done that yourself. And I'll never forget the time that you finally took maybe like 10 days and you went on a trip to maybe Thailand or something. And you came back and you were so refreshed, you were so calm, and you're like, oh, now I get it. Okay, you're allowed to take vacations now because this is actually normal. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. She's human.
Well, so many things you don't really get until you experience yourself, right? And that's a good small example. It's one of the things I've always said. I'm grateful that I was the first one in the business to get pregnant and have a baby, because I don't think I would have been as humane and liberal with that maternity leave and understanding all of that until I had gone through the experience. So I'm grateful it didn't come up before, because I think I probably would have been, in hindsight, like ashamed of the way that the standards that I would have had for someone growing and then having a baby. So yeah, I have regrets around just not, I think I'm actually a really like soft, kind person. And I think plenty of that came through with my team, but that wasn't always what I led with. And like, even, thinking about the days that we had the office, for the year or two that we had the office, and like, I'd be there from 8 to 8 a.m. to 8 or 8:30 p.m. And I like expected people not to work those hours, but like I didn't expect you to go home before like 6 or 6:30,
Yeah, and that's so hard we just came from such different places. Like for me, and coming from Australia, like we value work-life balance so, so highly. And it's like you get your work done and you should be out the door like 5:30. Like you've got to get home and live your life. You just have to have that balance. And so that was really hard for me to get my head around those expectations. And I wanted to, be a good worker and do all of these things. But I was like, I can't work like this. This just isn't in my makeup as well. It's just of course I'll work hard. And there were times that I definitely, was working on the weekends and longer hours, etc. But we just were in such different mindsets of that.
Well, and it's not just me, right? Like I didn't make up this mindset. That is that's just kind of what's framed around startup life, is like, this is how you work. You work all these hours, you work weekends. Like I was responding to emails to investors at 6 a.m., 10 p.m., taking calls whenever I had to. Like it trickles down from the top, right? And like that doesn't make it any less fucked up. And like I couldn't see that this is where the ego comes in too. Like you have this pride around, look how hard I can work, look how much I can pull, because it's then reinforced by these outside sources, like in my scenario, VCs, and sometimes other business owners too. It's like, look at me, look how hard I can work. And they're like, okay, gold star for you, little girl. Like, good job.
Yes, totally. I mean, I think we've spoken about this before, but the fact that you were sending emails when you were in labor, like literally going into labor, sending emails.
Yeah.
Work emails.
Yeah, that was a period that I have regrets about, for sure. I mean, I was fundraising my entire pregnancy, sending emails for 6 hours while in early labor. And then a little bit of panic, like after the baby was born too, on like on business stuff. But going back, so we had the storefront. We're selling milk at this time too, selling juice, milk, selling other local products. It was really fun, but like not probably worth the time and effort, you know, at least financially, ROI. ROI wise. But you know, I had such a hard time. Like there were many times we sat down to have the conversation of like, we should probably close down the shop. It's not profitable. It takes so much time and attention. And I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And again, that's probably ego. I mean, part of it was like a big part of the reason I started the company was to change people's lives through food. And we got to see that every single day in our interactions with people that came into the shop. And so part of it was so fulfilling. It was also like a great experiment. Like, remember the random shit that we would come up with and make beyond like the juice recipes? We had like superfood gummy bears that we would sell. We had a whole chapter where we were making salads. I mean, what else? Can you remember?
Skincare?
Skincare, yeah.
Literally brought out a skincare line.
We created a skincare line with my herbalist friend, Lauren.
The smoothies were so good. The wellness shots, just like everything that you could want, we had.
Yeah, and if we got rid of the shop, we really had no reason to have those things. Right? So that was a decision that I just like couldn't bring myself to make. We also, separate from the shop, we had our wholesale business, which was all milk. It was all the almond milk, selling into coffee shops. And like anyone could see that made way more sense. It was way more profitable. We had a really great system in flow. It had the ability to scale in a really large way. We had created this like unique format with it in order to maintain our quality of like homemade fresh milk. We created these frozen concentrates, and well, they weren't working, you know, they worked. And well, you know, Maddie, you were part of the sales team at that point, or you were leading the sales team. You know, while people looked at us like we were crazy when we were walking into a coffee shop talking about frozen plant-based milk, it did work, and the people who were using it loved it. And so we almost had these two separate businesses. And then COVID hit.
Let's actually speak about how your feelings are around COVID. I don't know if we've ever fully spoken about how it made you feel. Maybe through the time, I know you were putting on such a brave face, and maybe that was like the time that you could close down the shop and let go of ego because you're like, oh, it's COVID's fault. But like, what was really going on for you during that time?
Oh, fuck. Yeah. I did have that moment with the shop, like secretly in my own head. I didn't want to shut it down, but I was like, okay, at least there's a reason now that's not me giving up, you know, or not me as a failure.
Totally.
Anyone could see that it would make sense not to continue to run the shop. But we also closed down our office, which felt like that was really hard because getting an office felt like a big moment, right? Like
we became legit company. Like instead of working from home or out of your place, like we were actually had a Goodmylk headquarters.
Yeah. And it was a cool office. And I did enjoy, like, I loved seeing everyone every day and like the energy of the team, and like it was fun and felt and like we'd have people to our office for meetings, and people were always like, oh, this is legit. Like it just was like, as the founder, it was a moment of like, okay, we've made it to a next step, you know?
Yeah.
And we have something to show for it. Again, probably a very ego driven thing. And then we decided to close it. Our lease was up, and it didn't make sense to have it on the P&L and be paying for it. And so that was kind of a like kick in the gut moment, but it was hard to feel all of those feelings because there were bigger things going on. Like our coffee shops our main source of income shut down overnight. I was in the middle of a fundraise when COVID started, and I was like, how am I going to get money now? We have no plan. And we had to let a bunch of our team members go. I mean, and we had to do it fast. Like, it wasn't like there was all this talk about like government help coming, but this was mid-March. Government help didn't come until like end of April at the earliest, maybe even later. And we had no idea when money was going to come or what was going to happen. And so it was just like one freaking like kick you in the gut decision after another. And I remember when we made the decision about cutting team members and reducing people's hours, and it was just like that day in between, and I was having to do the calls on Zoom, and like in between every call I just like laid on the floor crying. I was like, fuck.
Oh my God.
It sucks. It's
so
not their
heavy.
fault. Like, it's a time in the world where everything's uncertain. Like, I'm kicking them when they're down, but also like, what am I supposed to do if this whole business falls? And like, we also have the production team who like can't afford a day of not getting paid, and it was a lot. And so yeah, and then I had to figure out a pivot. I mean, day 2 of finding out that our coffee shops were going to close down, and all the grocery, like everything was still kind of open. I literally drove around to every local grocery store to try and talk to someone about getting the product in. And I did get in front of some people, but like it wasn't going to happen fast enough. And it was like, I quickly realized like, okay, this is not going to work.
Yeah, I remember reaching out to people and they were like, how can you be trying to like sell your product during this time? Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like we're all trying to survive right now.
Yes.
It was hard. You didn't know how to navigate it.
No. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it was just weird and scary. And so we kind of like, obviously we had a frozen product, and plant-based milk. And so we just naturally saw sales pick up online on our D2C channel, our direct-to-consumer channel through our website. And so we kind of leaned into that. We had no idea what we were doing. And so the midst of shutting things down, letting go of employees, we're also trying to do this massive pivot to a channel that we don't know. So I'm interviewing people to help with that, trying to figure out how to do it myself, trying to like watch classes and, webinars and all of it, trying to apply for government money, trying to fundraise. It was so wild. I just like cried every day for a while. Just like, why is this happening? And what does it all mean? And what are we going to do? And obviously we got through it and figured it out, but it took a lot out of me. And I think it took a lot out of a lot of founders.
Oh yeah. It was such a hard time. But yeah, you got through and so much further beyond.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, yeah, well, that was 4 years ago. So that's kind of wild.
Okay, so where does that leave you now?
Well, we've, in a world of many pivots. Also, do you remember? So my first company, or the first version of this company was called Renew Juicery, and I had been running it for like a year or two maybe, and got a cease and desist from some random company called Renew, and so I was like, okay, I can't trademark this. I can't use the name. Do you remember I mean, this was a moment. I'm not very good at like, I'll listen to advice.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm not really one to fully take advice unless it's already like aligned with what I think it should be.
You had to hear yes to anything that you said.
I was really looking for more for like reinforcement than advice for the most part, I guess. And
I mean, I'll never forget.
I came up with this name that I thought was going to be the name. Like, I had such a vision for it. And Maddie and Dennis and one of our other team members, Morgan, shut me down so hard. And I was like, no, you just don't get it. And they were like, no. And I'm so glad. I don't know why I listened. I think you guys were just so adamant about it not being the name.
Yes. Like, there are times that I don't want to offend someone. If they've come up with an idea, I'm like, I don't know, maybe this. But with this, it was so clearly absolutely not that I will literally cannot work for a company called that. Like, it would have made me quit. I'm not kidding you.
Listen, This I think also speaks to a little bit of like what a dreamer I am and how I really wanted like to have everything we did to have an impact. But the name was, we were going from Renew Juicery to Save the World Wellness Company. Save the world for sure.
Wellness.
Save the world for sure. And we were going to pick a different charity every month to donate to and do a bunch of information around them. And like, I had this whole big vision about like how a juice company could make this big impact on the world. And like, let's be real, it was going to be a lot of work. And probably 3 months in, I would have been like, holy shit, what are we doing? But I was excited about it. And the team was like, that's going to be a hell no.
And at the time, we were being forced to move into plastic bottles as well.
Oh yeah, we were still doing
like, oh.
yeah, yes, that was part of the reason too. I was like, and we ended up doing donating to a sea turtle like rescue foundation for that, but
5% to water.
We could use glass in store, but to keep our wholesale business, our wholesale juice business, we had to use plastic. FDA government regulations, super annoying. But fuck, I forgot about that pivot, dude. Just so many things. We were in survival mode for so long.
I mean, do you remember the time that this was when you had your first trip and you went away to Thailand for the first time, and while you were away, I was at the kitchen and the health department rocks up and like pretty much raids the kitchen. And
I forgot about that.
I don't know how much we can say here, but they were just like, you can't be selling raw juice. You can't be doing this. And they were threatening to shut down the business right then and there. They're like, any product that you have at any different store front, anywhere, any customer, you need to recall it right now. And like they were pouring out bottles of juice and milk in front of us. And me and Alberto, our head of the kitchen at the time, were just standing there watching it. I was like, oh my God, the business is being shut down. I couldn't get through to you. I was like, okay, what the hell? Why does this happen now?
And I was on my way back from Thailand. So I remember being in the airport in Korea and you were calling and I was like, what the hell? And so I pick up and you're like, okay, don't panic. I was like, oh shit.
Here we go.
But you were also dog sitting. You were babysitting our dog. So
yes,
you're like, Bazooka's okay. I was like, okay, cool. Anything else I can handle. The dog's okay. Like we can handle any other issue here.
Don't worry about the dog. It's the business. And she's like, okay. That's okay. We can get through this. Because I think by that stage you were probably used to every single possible thing that could have gone wrong. Like there was always something.
Running a business is you're just constantly problem solving. It's like it just really works that muscle. You're just constantly problem solving, and it's like there's no point in pouting, dwelling. You just got to figure out, okay, this happened. Cool. What's the next step to make it better? And like, let's do that as quickly as we can. Dude, yeah, that was wild. I mean, everything ended up being okay, but we did have a lot of product that they dumped, and they ended up we basically, I flew home from Korea and then almost flew to Sacramento the next day because we had to get some paperwork filed ASAP. And they were like, no, don't do that. They're like, we'll just let things be okay for the few days until you get it paid to expedite it. And then it was all fine. But yeah, I forgot about that.
I know.
Clearly you were traumatized by that one.
Oh yeah, that one stuck with me. Okay, so what were all the names of the business? How many name changes did we end up having?
Okay, good. This is a good one. Okay, Renew Juicery, my first one. Cold and Thirsty, which was, we still had Renew at the time, but it was the brand of the shop. And then we changed the name of the shop to Renew Juicery, and then that's when we got the cease and desist. And I wanted to change it to Save the World Wellness, and got denied so hard that I couldn't. You guys were basically gonna put me in a basement for a week to stop me from.
You need to rethink yourself here. You're not saving the world, but we love the intention.
Yes, yeah, sure. You're like, okay, is she fully crazy? And then our final juice name was, and what we stuck with was Made with Love. Made with Love Wellness Inc. was the name of the full name of the company. And
a lot of words.
In parallel, we had the plant-based milk line, which was called mylk, MYLK. And that was at the time just fresh milk going to our storefront. We had like the amazing flavors like lavender and matcha and
Mint
coffee.
cacao.
And, yeah, I miss those.
Strawberry milk during the summer season.
So good. And then we had product going to the coffee shops. And then we got to a point where we were like, okay, milk. We
got a letter, didn't we?
No, it was more of like, hey, this is not trademarkable, and we're gonna like bet on this portion of the company. We really could see a vision of how that portion of the company was scalable, and so that's when we were like, okay, we need to come up with a name that we can trademark, something that's scalable and elevates it a bit, and that's where we came up with Goodmylk Co. And no looking back, I love that brand so much.
Yeah,
that
was it.
The name, the branding, like that's something I'm really proud about, is like the brand and visual vision of the brand that we created.
Yeah, so good. And yeah, that's where it started, and you just had to go on a journey to get there.
Yes. Well, and then the journey of Goodmylk Co has not been uneventful either.
Okay, so let's talk about the journey of Goodmylk Co. I mean, this is far advanced now. The company's at a very different level. We've progressed now. We're fully wholesale business.
Yeah.
What are the new challenges you're faced with?
Fully wholesale, no juice, just plant-based milk. I mean, we're doing formats that don't exist, right? So we have our frozen format. Behind the scenes, we're trying to create these powdered formats. That on its own is super intense, like R&D, trying to create something that doesn't exist. And I've always had this little bit of a very optimistic mentality, I think, where, Dennis like calls it Brooke's world, but just this like, I can't like reconcile like not being able to do something, like that doesn't register. I don't know what you'd call it. So just always pushing
There's always a way.
Yeah, just always pushing us to do the thing, do the exact vision. And I don't regret that by any means, but I see how it could have made some things harder. You
just wouldn't fault it from the vision. It was like, we will always be organic. We will always have clean ingredients. We will never pasteurize our product. Your values were so strong that when it came to these moments of being like, look, Brooke, if we just pasteurize the product, we could get it into bottles and we can get it into Whole Foods. And if we did non-organic, we could have way bigger margins and all of these things. And you were like, no, we're not going to do that. We have to stick to the values. And that is something I really respected about you.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good there. There's a lot of bad there too, though, because that is still ego, and that is like, the company was it was me, like in my mind, and not consciously, but we were one and the same, and that I don't think is always a good thing. It definitely wasn't a good thing for my like physical and mental health. And early days, the company and I having the same values and building, like, I think it did a lot of good, and it always made me feel passionate about the business. But man, yeah, I couldn't compromise on those things, because what would that say about me?
Yeah. You were so adamant. You were so determined that like, you're like, I wouldn't consume that. So why would I let anyone else consume that? That was the way that you lived. It was just textbook. And yeah, it was great in so many ways, but it probably, maybe in hindsight, like and this is why people sell out. This is why people are like, you know what, I'm just going to do this to the product because I know it's going to sell better. And maybe they're adding ingredients they're not so happy with. But that's what happens in the food industry.
It is. And the food and beverage especially, is so hard. People don't really understand like how their food gets to them in the grocery stores and on their tables. Like, it is so hard, and it's so much work, and there's so many details and nuances, and the companies making the product, no matter how much it's selling for, the companies making the product are actually making very little margin. Like, the grocery stores make more money off of our products than we do. And yeah, I don't know. That's where, again, like, had I been willing to compromise early on, things might have been easier, but that wasn't the journey.
Yeah,
It wasn't what we did.
totally. If there was something that you would have done differently in that sense, what would it have been in hindsight?
I don't know. I mean, I wish I maybe would have been less bullheaded. I think the real thing was like I wish I would have detached me personally, my value, my morals from the business. I mean, I'm so proud of the products we created, but also like
Totally.
there were some times that I felt like I was the only one who had the standard and I was the only one who cared. And you're trying to convince customers to care about these things that they should care about, because food is, I will say this a million times, food is the most important decision that we make every day. But the vast majority of people don't care, don't have time to care, don't have the information to care. And there were a lot of times that I felt like I was creating products just for myself and no one else cared. And that's where I probably should have like paid a little more attention to that.
Speaking from being on the front lines, being in the sales, running the sales, and trying to sell this product out to coffee shops, it was hard at times. It was a lot of education. We were like, look, it is the most clean ingredients. It is just no added binders, fillers, gums, oils, etc. It's as clean as it gets. And yet it's like, and it's 100% organic, but it comes frozen and it's more expensive. And these coffee shops are like, what? Like, okay, but like I just need the easiest thing possible and I don't really care what's in it and I just need it to steam up and blend with my coffee and not separate. And it was so hard to sell an industry that didn't really care about that on it and try and convince them to believe that they should care.
Yeah. Yeah. And me, like I just couldn't even hear any of it. I didn't want to hear it. It was hard for me to believe, and maybe this is because of my wellness journey or because just knowing what I know about health and wellness, I just like couldn't figure out how they couldn't get it, how they weren't listening to what we said. And then when we gave them the information, how they were making the decision, and we gave the comparison to what they were selling, in these cartons of milk, when we gave them that information, I was like, wait, you're literally making a decision to poison your customers? I don't get it. Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around that shit. And that is true, but that's not what they were seeing. And I think a lot of coffee shop owners are a long ways away from seeing it that way, or even have the like luxury to see it that way, because they're in survival mode too. These small coffee shops, they're in survival mode too,
Yeah, and also in the sense of talking about the actual ingredients and it being poison. Like if something's not affecting you right then and there, then you can't see that as an issue. I mean, yes, these oils and binders and fillers cause like long-term inflammation and like long-term gut issues. Like it's not a problem right now. It's not, that's not an issue that they see that's a problem. I mean, think about the whole food industry as a whole. There's 3,000 ingredients that are illegal in the UK and Australia that are still in foods in the US because they've been proven to cause cancer and high blood pressure and all of these things, high cholesterol, blah, blah, blah. And they're still in the food system. So it's like, whose responsibility even is it? I don't think it was like the baristas at the coffee shop. Right. They're like, this is products on the shelf so we can sell it.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I felt that as the maker of food, the creator of a food company, I felt like that it was my responsibility. And I felt like every single person creating food or serving food, that it was their responsibility too. And, maybe the business will evolve to that someday, but it's not there and it's not even close. And I was fighting and we were fighting such an uphill battle, and still are with, we have a format now. We've formulated a format for convenience, It still has all those other things. But we like really looked at like, what will make this channel excited? What do they need? And what still makes our business exciting and make us feel aligned? So that's been a big transition. But yeah, just constantly fighting an uphill battle on our values and trying to get other people aligned with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And like such a great learning, and so interesting to look back in hindsight. But I think in many ways you're ahead of the game, fighting for this. And it would be interesting to see how the food system, the food industry evolves. I mean, we see it. There's healthier products coming out. It's just like, how quickly are people really, really going to care? And the legislation's going to be put in place to start banning these ingredients after we're really proving these health issues.
Yeah. It's not fast enough. I mean, the food system is a problem for so many things. I mean, even just the environment, the things that could be done to change our food system that would have such an impact on global warming and all these environmental issues. They're not like moving mountains fixes. There's things that could be fixed, but they're not going to be. And as we've talked in other episodes, the system is so freaking broken, and we're all just scrambling inside this broken system to try and like do something good or make a difference. And it's like, even what we're doing, putting out plant-based milks in this way, like how big of an impact is it ever going to make? I don't know, because it's being done inside a really freaking broken system, and we're trying to kind of cheat the system a bit, right? By like, hey, we're doing all these other parts that like will help you and that you want and make life easier for you. And we're sneakily like the cleanest and most nutritious, and, sticking to these other values that you might not care about. But we do. And so I don't know. It's a tough, food and beverage is tough, and it's tough to make a difference in that world.
So knowing now, what you know now, how would this have impacted how you would have done it differently? Or would you have gone into it at all?
That's a tough question. A big part of me is like, I would never fucking start a food and beverage business again. And I actually do mean that. Dennis will randomly, like, we always joke around and come up with different business ideas, and his always revolve around beverages. And I'm like, bruh, no, we are never doing another beverage business. Like, we will be lucky to get out of this one alive someday. So I don't know, but then at the same time, while the journey has been so freaking hard, and we didn't even get into the lawsuits and the it's just been so hard. I am really happy with the person I am in this moment and the person I'm evolving to, and the way I'm able to show up as a parent. Like, you go through these things in business, like, it just, your barometer for stress or BS or multitasking or all those things, like, is so much higher than just dealing with normal life. At least that's my experience, that it's like, it's prepared me for this stage of my life in a really beautiful way, and prepared me for parenting in a really beautiful way, where it's like, oh, parenting's like not that, I mean, there's moments for sure, but a lot of the stuff in parenting, it's like, cool, I can handle that. Even honestly, during childbirth, like, as I was like trying to push out a baby, or as I was having contractions, and I was like, literally was like, at least I'm not dealing with investors. Like, you can do this, because you've done, like, I just would have moments of like thinking about all the bullshit I dealt with investors and being like, I can do that, I can do this, I can get this baby out of me.
Jesus. I think we should go there, because it feels like this was a big part of your journey with Goodmylk. I feel like we're always trying to raise money, raising. So can you speak to the reality and like what it actually looks like for a company to get investors?
Yeah. I started fundraising in a time where fundraising was really buzzy. And like, if you were an it company and an it founder, you were fundraising, right? And like, that's kind of all I knew about it. I didn't fully know what it meant for the long term. And so, what I didn't know was when you raise money for the first time, you're probably going to have to raise money again and again, because these investors are expecting the, $100 million plus sale. They're expecting 10x return. And the only way to do that is to build your company to a massive scale and get acquired or sell it to someone. So like, there's no like school for founders to go, or maybe there is, but like not easily and accessibly a place for founders to go and like learn about the fundraising journey before you're just fucking on the train. And like, you can't, once you're on, you cannot get off. And you witness that. I didn't know that when I started. And our first round we raised was $500,000. I remember the day it hit the bank. Like, Dennis and I just literally I got off it was being wired. I called my banker. I think we like needed money immediately for something. And so I called my banker and was like, hey, can you get this wire approved ASAP? Literally on the phone with him. He was like, yep, I'm hanging up. It's being approved right now. I opened my app, my Chase app, and Dennis and I looked and watched it the account go from zero. This was a savings account, new account that we'd opened. So it was at zero. Watch it go from zero to $500,000 within a second. And we were just like, holy shit. I remember Dennis even being like, is the money just gonna like show up in your account? Like all $500,000? I was like, yeah, I think so. Like, what else would happen? And it did. And it was there. And I was like, holy shit, this is insane. Like, one, I was so grateful that people trusted me to give me money. And I think early on in my fundraising journey, there was just such this disbelief and gratitude that someone would even give me money that I put a little bit too much power in the investors' hands of that. I was like, okay, I'm now forever indebted to you. I owe you every bit of me because you took a chance on me. A girl who has no business background. I came from the middle of frickin' nowhere, shithole town. No offense, people back home, but like, it's
poor Buffalo.
It's a blue collar. I mean, where I'm not even from Buffalo. I'm from the countryside. I say Buffalo, but this is an hour away from Buffalo. It is the countryside. I never saw a woman running a business. I never heard about fundraising. Wow. I never, it's a very blue collar, like farmers. My family were farmers. My mom worked at the school. My stepdad was in construction. And you're giving this girl who has no connections, never run a business, no business background, didn't go. I went to college and graduated, but I didn't go. I went to film school. I didn't go to business school, and I definitely didn't go to a school that anyone freaking knew about. And like, you are giving me money and believing in me, and like, wow, I'm so indebted. And I took that to heart and just gave everything I had back. It's almost like this unworthiness, right? Like at its core, actually, it's like, wow, am I even worthy of this? Well, now let me spend every ounce of myself proving to you that I am. And that's my own shit. I do have some investors now that expect that, and we can get to that part. And I've set a boundary and I don't act like that anymore, but that was my own shit. That wasn't necessarily my early investors expecting that. That was me not feeling worthy and needing to prove myself.
Wow. So then how did it transform from there? What were the learnings as the raising continued?
So many. Of course, when you're fundraising too, there's this interesting relationship with your employees, because I believe, and you can share your perspective, but I believe in a lot of our interactions with the team. I was like very open and very real about everything going on, and sharing, especially, I didn't always share the low points because I didn't want anyone to stress the way that I was, but sharing the highs of like, hey, we just closed a round, or we're raising this much, and like, we just,
Mm-hmm.
So when you share that with employees and then all of a sudden you close a round, and so we close a $2 million round to a business, that's not a lot of money, you know?
Yeah.
And that money is like, has some really very real things being spent on. To an employee who doesn't have the perspective from the top of being the business owner or being in the finances, that's a lot of money. And just the relationship and things and the expectations like start to change. And so I always thought that was an interesting dynamic. And I also didn't really share a lot of this. There wasn't many people I could share a lot of this with. I didn't share with my family at all, because to my family, I told you guys about where I came from. To my family, like $2 million. I mean, to everyone, to me, $2 million is a lot of money, okay? But not when it has to be applied in a business and to grow a business to a certain place. And so I never really shared about any of the fundraising stuff with my family. I never shared like the ups. I mean, I share some of the ups. I never share the downs with my family.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels like a journey that's so unrelatable. And also, I also don't want them to worry. And what good would it do? Because they can't relate. It's not going to help me feel better. And the money piece, like, it's just not what people think it is. You know, it's not this relief. I never, ever, and this actually makes me really sad. Like, I never closed around and felt like relieved.
Wow.
So much work
That's
went into
crazy.
fundraising, and you'd think there'd be this like big celebration when you close it, and you're like, no. I actually have not really celebrated, and this is a regret. I haven't really celebrated much about the business through the journey, because it's just always like, okay, on to the next. Like, and it's always like, okay, that was a win, but that win wasn't good enough. That's not the big win. And
Where
I
do you
don't
think
know
that comes from?
I don't know what win would have ever been good enough or will be good enough. That's something I'm actively working on. But yeah, there was never any relief from fundraising, or maybe a few moments of like, okay, this is done. Now I can turn all my attention to the business, but like, holy shit, now I just made all these promises through this fundraise, and now we have to deliver on them. So yeah, you're just kind of on the roller coaster, but the roller coaster is like the scary, stressful part. So there's not the relief part really.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, was this, I mean, I'm interested to know where this actually came from in you. Like, what was this, just such high expectations of yourself?
Yeah. I think I think historically I've really been driven by proving myself and like the chips on my shoulder, you know? Like my dad abandoning me as a kid, and like what that makes you feel of like, okay, I'm not good enough for this person to be in, for this person to care about me. So like that chip of like, let me fucking prove to you how important, how good I am, how successful I am. My stepdad, beyond the like physical abuse, there was obviously verbal abuse, and like telling me what a loser I was, how, you know, invaluable I was, how dumb I was, like how, you know, telling me all of these things. And that gives you, okay, let me fucking prove you wrong, dude. So I think, and then the investor experience, it's as much as I've been successful in fundraising, there are, to every one yes, there are 100 or more no's. Like, I've spoken to probably 1,000 people fundraising, you know,
Jesus.
maybe even more. And so there's a lot of no's and a lot of moments of like, and every founder, and definitely every female or diverse founder deals with the investor conversations with them just talking down to you, belittling you, or like, you know, being like, okay, that's cute, but no, there's this, it's hard to explain, but there's just a lot of conversations with investors that are not respectful to the founder, are not, you know, holding you in high regard, are more of like, well, you could do better, you should do better, you should have done better, this isn't interesting, like a lot of down talking. So that whole journey brings up all of the childhood trauma and adds the chips to the shoulders. And like a lot of my motivation was like the chips on the shoulder. Let me prove it to you. Let me prove it to the people who bet on me that it was the right thing to do. And even more, let me prove it to the people who didn't. And, you know, go fuck yourselves, because you could have made this money. You could have had this opportunity. So sadly, I'm not proud of that, but it's just the reality. Like that was historically a lot of my driving force.
Well, good and bad, you know, it got you to where you are. And, you know, it does take such a certain type of person to be able to run a business and do what you've done. And beautiful that you're able to reflect and say, okay, maybe that isn't the way though. And now you can learn from this and be in this place now of just being so much gentler, softer, which I see. I definitely used to see the full steam ahead, like bucking Brooke that was just like, let's go. And I don't think even though I knew you, I didn't see that side of you. You didn't show the softer side of you, the sort of what you wouldn't show weakness. And so I had this view of, oh, Brooke can handle anything. Like, oh, she'll just work it out. Like a hard situation, we'll figure it out because she can get through anything. And now I'm actually know you as a friend. Now that I'm not working for you, you've been able to reveal, and I think both our dynamic now, but also just how far you've come. You're revealing this other side of you. Like, oh, she is human.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, I had to go on my own journey and remind myself of that. And it wasn't like I had to hit rock bottom which I did, you know, a little over a year ago. And I had to hit that. Unfortunately for me, hopefully there were so many red flags. Like I should have, you know, kind of seen and many moments where I should have like taken a minute and said like, hey, maybe there's a different or easier way to do this. And instead I did, as you say, charged through because I just had such value around that resilience and like fighting through. And so I do wonder a lot, like, man, had I just paid attention any of those other times, like, could this have gotten easier, faster? But I didn't. So, you know, that brought me to my final fundraise a year ago that just broke me in so many ways that I had to do things differently. I had to run my business differently. I had to ask the hard questions. I had to like figure out how to get out of survival mode and just like live.
So this was rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely was. And it was like, you know, the things that actually triggered rock bottom, like while traumatic, if you looked back through the history of my life, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, though, you know, it's not the most traumatic thing that I would have ever been through, but it was the years and years and years of trauma and this final trigger that just like brought it all to the forefront and just sat it on top of me. And I like couldn't move, couldn't breathe, literally like, couldn't see, didn't know who I was, didn't love my business for the first time, which was really a scary thing because this final catalyst came through the business. And so it made me start to hate my business, actually. And certainly I hated the way that it was operating at that time. And that was one of the scariest things too. I know you and I have talked about this, but the moment my ego separated from the business, and I don't know that it fully has, but a large chunk of it, the moment that I separated my identity and my ego from the business was so freaking scary because I had this idea in my head, and I had maybe thought about, you know, had thoughts pop up throughout time of like, this is hard. I don't know if I want to continue doing this. I don't know if I love this anymore, that I would never, never, never listen to. They were like deep, deep, deep in the back of the head. And I like almost shut them down as soon as I would hear them. But the first time I was able to like reconcile, like, this business and I have become two different entities, and we are operating in two different ways, and I'm not willing to operate in that way anymore. It was really scary. So I literally felt like the business would die if I didn't put every ounce of me and my energy into it.
Wow. I fully see that. I just know that you were so connected to it, and to now see you be able to separate from it emotionally, it seems like this light, you're just lighter, this weight off your shoulders. And I guess we've talked so much about, you know, the past stories of the business and your journey through it, but for the audience, like, where does this leave the business now? What can you speak to about Goodmylk right as it stands?
Yeah. I mean, Goodmylk is very much alive and thriving. And the crazy thing is, the second that I put up boundaries for myself, good things started to fall into Goodmylk's lap. You know, and that doesn't mean it hasn't been hard as well. And we were forced to make some hard decisions, but just the path for Goodmylk moving forward became so clear. And we had to make some really hard decisions that, like, when my ego was still connected, I couldn't make. Like, we had some products that we had to cut, and some sales channels that were just, I was just so emotionally attached to, because every product that we created was like a piece of my heart went into it. And I loved the products so much, and there was so much reason that they were created. And like, I really did, and still do, felt so grateful for every single person that would buy our products. Like, for a long time, it was just so shocking to me every time an order would come through of like, oh my God, someone is buying our products and they're in their home and they're using them and they're loving them. Like, most of our online customers were coming back a lot. So about 2 months ago, we shut that channel completely, and that, you know, got rid of a bunch of our SKUs. We made some decisions on the products we were going to scale up, and found a much more efficient way to do that. And literally today, as we are recording this, is our last day as a production company with our production team in our production facility. So we've shut that down, and that was such a hard decision. That team, you know, some of those team members had been with me for 8 or 9 years, and they are and were the heart and soul of the business. And we were a manufacturing business since day one. So while it's so clear it's all the right move for the business, it's going to help Goodmylk grow and thrive and allow us to get out to more customers in bigger ways and just make such a bigger impression on the world. Like, it was so hard.
I know. We love those guys. They work so hard.
Yeah. The team is incredible. And man, the products, like, telling customers that had been buying our products for years that they're no longer going to be available, like, that was the first Band-Aid really that we ripped off, and that was hard, and people were pissed. Like, I removed myself from the customer service channel. I don't really read much of the customer service stuff anymore, because I do take it all so freaking personally. Like, business is so personal. You know, I don't care what anyone says. At least in my experience, it's so freaking personal.
Yeah.
And that's a part that's hard too and wears on you. But I got some private DMs or text messages from acquaintances being like, no, you can't. Why? Like, I'm going to miss the product so much. I use it every day. And I was like, Fuck, I know. I use them every day too, and I'm not going to have access to them anymore either.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do anymore without the creamer in my matcha latte anymore. It's life's not worth living.
I know. But so yeah, that sucks. That was really hard. And so it's been, the past few months have been a series of hard decisions. And really the past week, as I like physically went to our production facility, helped get rid of a bunch of stuff, made decisions around stuff, said goodbye to team members, like it's been interesting. And I haven't fully processed it for sure, but it's like a different kind of grieving experience. Like I am throwing away packaging that I loved and for products that I loved and that we may never see the light of day again. And a lot of this stuff is kind of a reminder of all the pivots and all the different pieces of the business and like the failures, you know, a lot of wins in there, but like some of it just like feels like a failure. So that's been the past few weeks. And, you know, like I said, it's so the right move for the business and it's going to allow Goodmylk to thrive and get out to way more people. But it's a really huge chapter. It's a really huge chapter to close.
Yeah, this is big. Okay, so to tie it all in, what is some advice that you would give to another founder starting on their journey?
First, I would say, if you haven't started your business yet, make sure that you have to do this. Like, make sure that you are just so called to do this that you can't do anything else. If you are happy working for someone else, climbing the ladder at a company, or even, you know, working for other startups and not being the founder, do that. Like, do that. Because the journey is, it's no freaking joke. It's not just a journey. Like, this journey has been, I've learned so much. And yes, I've learned so much in business and, you know, all the language, all the strategies, all the sales tactics. I've learned so much. I've gotten to interact with really incredible, powerful, interesting people. And I've built something and I've put products. I say to the production team, like, we literally created products that didn't frickin' exist. That is powerful. And that is so cool. But you need to feel so, so called to that, because it's not only a journey as a business owner and a journey in your, you know, your work life, but it is such a personal journey. Like, it has cracked me open as a human in so many ways. Every trauma that I ever faced before starting a business has come up and come back and fucking stared me in the face and made me work through it, whether I wanted to or
therapy.
not. It's like the most fucked up version of therapy. It's like torture therapy. Like, I would rather be waterboarded than go through this kind of therapy.
My God. Wow.
But you know, and I say that coming from a place where, like, absolutely on the other side of like dealing with those traumas, and I certainly have far more to go on my journey. Like, I am grateful, and I always say, like, I have grown so much as a human on this journey, and every single day I am literally a different person because of how much you learn and grow and have to face every day. But you have to be you have to be so called to it, and it has to be your passion. Otherwise, like, one, it's not worth it, and you won't want to fight the way that I did. And I really think that I see I have so many founder friends, and I just see them all going through the same struggles. I do think there's a different way to do this. And, you know, I'm on my journey trying to figure out what that is. But I think my advice, and I just gave this advice to a founder who's thinking about fundraising, really think about how you not just want the business to run and operate, but how you want your life to look and be. and make your decisions through that lens, especially early days when you have the flexibility to, because it is so consuming and it is such a big part. You can't separate when you are the founder. You cannot separate your personal life from business. And so make sure you're shaping it all the exact way that you want it. And that is not something founders do currently.
How do you think you can make it less personal? Like, how do you think in hindsight you could have detached?
That's a great question. I don't know that I could have, because it was so personal for me. It was my personal journey. It was, and there was a lot of value to me being attached to it personally for a while. Like, it's a big part of the reason why I was successful at fundraising, is because investors saw how passionate I was and how attached to it I was. And so they're like, we're willing to make the bet on this girl because she's so attached. She's not letting this thing die, So she'll push through anything. So I don't know if you can. I think I don't know if I could have. Maybe if you're in tech or, in some other business, but food and beverage, I feel like is very personal.
Well, especially when you have such strong values within the food that you consume and how much information you know. Like, if you're just coming from the outside and you just decide to start a beverage company, but you don't really care about ingredients and you don't really care about health, then you could just start anything, maybe. But you're like, this is what I want to consume. This is what I want to be putting out there, a product that I would be so happy to share with people because I know that it's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Even just talk, as I've been having heart problems, or, feel like I've been having heart problems for the past year and a half. And just this conversation, my heart hurts. Physically hurts right now. And there's so much I'm grateful for on this journey. And it led me to you. It's grown me in so many ways, but there's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of heartbreak on the journey. I don't know if there's any way around that.
Wow, what a healing experience this has been. Brooke, you have shared so much truth, so much honesty and realness that I don't think that people would have seen before. And thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. And it's easy to share with you because I know you get it and you know so much of it and you've seen so much of it and you've seen it all up front and personal, and beyond that, you've seen my personal journey as well. And again, very much on it, but I hope sharing some of the reality, one, makes other founders feel less alone, because we always, we go on these podcasts or tell our stories and we know we're just sharing a glimpse of them, and we know we can't really trust anyone to share the whole thing, except for maybe a few of our other close founder friends. But founders get put on this weird pedestal of I feel like in the public of that we just, a lot of us don't feel like we deserve. And also, I've been playing with this idea of man, as a founder on a pedestal, sharing our stories of how hard we work and the breakthrough moments and the success pieces, are we just feeding in? Are we just the leaders of this other broken system of look at me, look at how hard I can work, look at what it takes to create something and make change in the world. This work hard, sacrifice yourself, sacrifice everything for the end goal. That's not really the example that I want to set. And hopefully I will not be setting it any longer. I'm looking at a different way of running the business and already in the process of, living that and living a more balanced version. And that balanced version is actually so much better for my business. So hopefully some founders out there can hear that and, sit with that and maybe take that into into their day-to-day.
That was such beautiful advice. Thank you for sharing that for other founders who are on this journey, because it's so nice to hear this real raw version of the reality of actually being a founder and starting running a business. And you've had experience over 10 years, the ups, the downs. And I think that this would be really powerful for people to hear. And maybe it'll hit for some, maybe it won't for others, but I think people need to know the real struggles. So in saying that, I'm going to ask you a final question. And this question is the question that we ask individuals, but I want to ask you for the business.
Oh,
actually, no, this is the question.
Okay.
This is going to be the question for CEO Brooke. Like, think about founder CEO Brooke. I want you to describe her in one word or a sentence. Her past self, her present self, and her future self.
Oh, I was not prepared for this.
I didn't prepare
Madeline.
you.
Good one. I know. Okay. Past self, pushing, fighting, I don't know how to explain it, but just a version, just not me, a not me version of me, a phony, but not a phony, like a just robotic version of me, disconnected from self. And present is calm, evolving to find balance, listening, and joyful. Future is free. Fucking free, and freedom, just freedom within the business, freedom to run it as myself and reap the rewards that I know will come from that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I think that's powerful. That just speaks to the lessons that you've learned, and you had to go through that journey. It had to be full circle to get where you are now, to be able to pursue the things that you want to pursue in the rest of your life in this different mode, different mindset, different way you navigate the world.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the hero's journey or the fool's journey, but it has been, either way, it's been a journey for sure.
An incredible journey. Okay, thank you so much, Brooke, for sharing. I think that there are probably so many more questions, and if there are questions from our listeners, feel free to share them, send them in to us, because we can always ask Brooke more questions. But this was a great just learning of the reality, and thank you for sharing today.
Yeah, thank you, Mads, and thanks to our listeners for giving me a space and a place to kind of travel back in time and travel through that and grieve a little bit and process and just help me on my healing journey and into future CEO Brooke. So thank you guys. Thank you, Maddie.
We're here to help heal. We're all healing each other.
Yes, I love it. If you have founder friends, CEO friends, if you have friends thinking about starting a business, please share this with them. And yeah, our DMs are open. If I can ever help anyone, in business in any way, whether it's fundraising, whether it's spiritually, whether it's finding themselves, whether it's just a, tiny piece of advice, maybe naming their business, Save the World Wellness is still out there, guys. If anyone,
the name is still available,
wants to take,
and will probably always be.
If anyone wants to take that name, there's a freebie for you. Just let me know, and so I can support you. But yeah, DM us. Let us know your thoughts, feelings, how we can help. And as always, we love and appreciate you. Thanks so much for hanging with us.
Thank you, guys. This was fun. See ya.